Have you ever been pushed away by someone you loved, gave everything to, only for them to turn their back on you one day as if you never mattered? And then months later, just when you finally start to accept the truth, they come back. Why? Do they regret it? Have they realized your worth? Or is it just an endless cycle? Welcome to my channel. I'm Jim Rohn, and today, I'm taking you into the mind of an avoidant, where fear and desire are in constant conflict. I will tell you a story, the story of Ethan and Lena, a love filled with tragedy, of someone who kept running, and of someone who finally learned to stop waiting. But before we begin, hit subscribe so you won't miss the next videos, because this might just be your story. Are you ready? Let's dive in. We will explore this through the story I am about to tell. It will help you find your own answer, and I will reveal an interesting truth that I am sure you won't want to miss. All right, my dear friend, let's begin. The story is about Ethan Carter, 32 years old. An avoidant, successful in his career but a failure in love. Lena Williams, 30 years old. Ethan's ex-girlfriend, a warm, patient woman who finally learned to put her self-worth above an unreciprocated love. The night rain poured over the city, releasing waves of icy water onto the deserted streets. Lena stood still in front of the parking lot behind the bar where they had once spent countless nights together. Her hand gripped her phone tightly, her heart torn apart by an internal storm. She had promised herself she wouldn't do this, sworn that she would never come back, yet she still pressed send on a single message. Ethan, meet me, just this one. Less than a minute later, her screen lit up. 15 minutes. The cold wind cut through her thin coat, but Lena didn't feel it. The real storm was raging inside her chest, fiercer than any rain pouring from the sky. Ethan arrived on time as he had promised. His car slid to a stop right in front of her. He stepped out, tall and imposing, a shadow against the dim streetlight. His gray-blue eyes were unreadable, as if he didn't want to be here. "Lena, what is this about?" His voice was deep, almost impatient. Lena looked at him, rain mixing with the tears on her face. "You really don't know?" Ethan sighed, running a hand through his rain-drenched hair. "Lena, don't do this. You know I'm not good at this. Not good." She let out a laugh, but it wasn't one of amusement. It was bitter. "You're not good at loving me, not good at staying, not good at cherishing what we had. Ethan, you're not even good at saying sorry." His jaw tightened, his eyes flickering with unease. "We're not right for each other, Lena. I told you that." "We're not right for each other?" she shouted, clenching her fists as if to keep herself from trembling. "Do you even know how hard I tried? I tried to understand you, to love you the way you needed, to accept the distance you created. But what about you, Ethan? Have you ever tried?" For me, silence. Just like always. His silence was the sharpest knife, the clearest answer. Lena took in a shaky breath and stepped closer. The space between them shrank to just a few steps. "If I walk away right now, will you stop me?" Ethan lifted his gaze, something flickering in his eyes for a split second. Then, just like always, he took a step back. There was no pleading, no desperate embrace, no "I need you." Only the rain and the growing distance between them. 3 months passed. Ethan continued living his life as before. Work, the gym, fleeting unattached dates. He convinced himself that he was fine, that this freedom was all he ever wanted. But on a late night, in the silence of his apartment, with only the ticking of the clock filling the emptiness, he picked up his phone. His fingers hovered over Lena's name. She had once been his safest place. Someone who was always there, no matter how many times he pushed her away. Without thinking, he pressed call. Ring, ring. Her voice came through, but it wasn't for him. "Hello, this is Lena. I can't take your call right now, but leave a message." He hung up immediately. A strange, unfamiliar ache spread through his chest. For the first time he felt it, she was truly gone. A week later, Ethan decided to visit Lena's favorite cafe. He wasn't sure what he was hoping for, maybe just to see her, to know she was still there. And then he saw her. But she wasn't alone, nor was she sitting with that old longing gaze. She was laughing, her eyes bright as she looked at the man across from her. His chest tightened. For the first time he understood. He had never feared losing her. He had only feared the emptiness that came when she was no longer there to return to. But this time he knew she wouldn't be waiting for him anymore. Ethan turned away and walked out of the cafe. But this time, he was the one who couldn't stop looking back. Love is not a prison, it is a choice. But Ethan had not chosen her when he had the chance, and Lena had finally chosen herself. When an avoidant ends a relationship, they do so with cold decisiveness. No hesitation, no inner turmoil, not a single tear. They cut off all contact as if the relationship had never existed. You're left behind, stunned, wondering how someone who once held you so tightly, whispered words of love, could leave without looking back. You try to convince yourself it's over, that they won't come back, but that is the biggest mistake you could make. Ethan had left that way too. No final words, no last message. He had simply vanished, as if Lena had never mattered. But months later, just when she was finally starting to find herself again, he returned. A short text, an unexpected late-night call, no apology, no explanation, just a sudden reappearance, as if he had never left. But why? Helen Fisher, a biological anthropologist, conducted a study on the effects of romantic rejection on the brain. She discovered that when a person looks at an image of their ex, their brain reacts in the same way a drug addict's brain does when craving their next fix. This explains why heartbreak hurts so deeply. It is not just emotional but a biological response. But here's something even more interesting. This reaction doesn't happen immediately for the avoidant. You, the one left behind, feel the pain right away. You spiral into despair, searching for a glimmer of hope, a sign that they will come back. But the avoidant is different. When they leave, they don't feel the loss immediately. Instead, they feel relief. Ethan had once believed that breaking up with Lena was the right decision. He spent the first few weeks after leaving enjoying the freedom he had always craved. No attachments, no pressure, no one waiting for him to reply to messages or explain his emotions. But then, after a few months, the silence began to close in on him. Before, when Lena was still there, he had always known that no matter how far he pushed her away, she would still be waiting. But now, no one was waiting anymore. And that was when the real withdrawal began. When an avoidant leaves you, they don't think they are losing you forever. They believe you will always be there. A door left open, a safe place to return to whenever they choose. But when they are finally confronted with emptiness, they begin to miss you. They miss your warmth, the way you made them feel safe, the comfort of knowing someone truly cared. But what they miss most is not you, it's the feeling you gave them. Ethan didn't come back because he realized Lena was the only one he loved. He came back because for the first time in his life he felt suffocating loneliness. And when that loneliness became unbearable, he returned to the only person who had ever soothed it. But Lena was no longer there waiting for him, and that was what terrified him the most. To understand why an avoidant can leave you without hesitation but later find their way back, you have to understand what's happening inside them. What you see, the distance, the silence, the firm decision to break up, is just the surface. Beneath that is an internal battle they themselves are not fully aware of. Avoidants don't leave because they don't love you. They leave because they are afraid of how much they love you. When a relationship begins, they are drawn to closeness, to warmth, to the feeling of being cared for and understood. Love gives them a sweet intoxication, but at the same time, it terrifies them. Why? Because to them, intimacy means losing control. As emotions deepen, they feel suffocated, as if the very connection they crave is threatening to take away their freedom. They begin to see love not as something beautiful, but as a trap. Ethan had felt the same way with Lena. In the beginning, he loved the way she looked at him with trust, the way she gently touched his hand when they sat on the couch watching movies. He liked the feeling of having someone always ready to listen to him. But then that feeling gradually became overwhelming. Every time Lena asked, "What are you thinking?" he felt pressured. Every time she said, "I miss you," he felt suffocated. Every time she wanted a clearer commitment, he felt like he was being cornered. And so he convinced himself that this love wasn't meant for him. He began to withdraw, texting less, responding more coldly, until one day he left completely, telling himself he was doing the right thing. But this is the greatest paradox of avoidance. They don't truly want to be alone. They just want to feel in control. Ethan believed that once he left Lena, he would feel relieved, that he would regain the freedom he had always craved. At first, that freedom wasn't a problem, until it became isolation. In the beginning, everything seemed fine. No one was asking him to reply to messages. No one was asking if he was okay. No one was demanding affection from him. But then, one day, he woke up and realized no one was waiting for him anymore. For the first time in months, he thought of Lena, not as pressure, but as something familiar, a safe place, someone who had once loved him without asking him to be anyone else. At first, it was just a passing thought, but then it grew. He missed the way she smiled at him, missed her gentle voice, missed the feeling of being truly cared for. And suddenly, the world he thought he wanted, the world of absolute freedom, felt terrifyingly empty. Ethan didn't go back to Lena because he had changed. He went back because for the first time he realized that silence was no longer a relief, it was an unbearable pain. And here lies the greatest lesson. Avoidants don't come back because they suddenly realize your worth. They come back because they need you to soothe them. But is that love? Or just an endless cycle? The painful truth. They don't come back because they love you. This is the moment you must face the hardest truth of all. An avoidant doesn't return because they realize you are the love of their life. They return because they cannot bear the emptiness they created themselves. They come back not because they have changed, but because they are looking for an escape from the loneliness they once believed was freedom. But do they truly want to stay? There is no guarantee that this time will be any different. An avoidant can only change when they are brave enough to face what they fear most, themselves. They must confront their fear of attachment, their false belief that love is a trap. They must learn to stop running and accept that closeness does not mean losing themselves. But that is not easy. Most avoidants are not ready for that kind of change. They come back, but they are still the same person, with the same fears, with the same cycle you have already been through. So the real question is not whether they will return. It is whether you are willing to open the door for them again. What are you waiting for? Maybe you have spent weeks, months, or even years waiting for this moment. You have imagined the message, the unexpected call, the moment they realize they cannot live without you. But ask yourself, what if their return is not the victory you think it is? What if the time they were gone was actually a gift, not a loss? What if the real victory is not having them back, but realizing you never needed them to be happy? Because right now you have a choice, to repeat the same cycle or to step out of it. And if you choose the latter, that is when something extraordinary will happen. The moment you stop chasing them, the moment you stop waiting for someone who never truly stayed, the moment you find peace without them, that is the very moment they will crave you more than ever. Because nothing unsettles an avoidant more than realizing your love is no longer waiting for them to return. And that, dear listener, is true freedom. So we have explored the hidden corners of an avoidant's mind, why they leave, the paradox that makes them return, and finally, the most important question, should you open that door again? The truth is, not everyone can change. Not everyone who comes back will stay, but you have a choice. The choice to love yourself more, to step out of a painful cycle, to stop waiting for someone who keeps running from love. If you have ever been through this, share your thoughts in the comments. Are you waiting for an avoidant to return, or have you found the strength to move forward? I would love to hear your story. Thank you for watching this video. If you found this content helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future videos on psychology and love. A small action from you can help many others out there recognize their own worth. See you in the next video.